It's Friday, March 4th. Let's talk PlayStation. As you can clearly see, I'm now in my new place. It's a complete mess. I don't have everything done just yet. A lot of people actually thought we weren't going to do LTPS this week, but of course we're going to do it, because why wouldn't we do it? We always got to talk about some PlayStation. So, again, not everything is not final. This is all going to look probably marginally different, and also where the camera is pointing is going to be different too. Again, I'm still figuring it all out. But anyway, let's talk some news. Namely, the fact that Uncharted 4 got delayed again. Not that much more, just 2 weeks, so it was coming out April 26th, I believe, now it's coming out May 10th, so not that far off. The typical, Naughty Dog apology and saying, oh, it's going to be worth it, don't worry about it, it's going to be great. More than likely, this is them kind of responding to the fact of saying, well, basically they said they want to make sure that everybody can play the game on May 10th, which is kind of implying that they want to, buff up the servers a little bit, do some more stress testing, and of course, today is when the Uncharted 4 multiplayer is going to be available for open beta for everybody on the PlayStation Store. So that's probably what they're going to be doing, is really stress testing and everything. So, and then they have more manufacturing time for the printing the disc and whatnot. So, whatever. It's only 2 weeks. Give them more time. I mean, it seems like they really want to make sure they get it right, and by all means, let them do that. Next up, let's talk about the PlayStation Portable. We don't talk about the PSP too often, but that's usually because, well, it's kind of dead now, and this news story is no different. Basically, the PlayStation Store on PSP is closing March 31st in North America. So I believe the store actually has already been closed for other regions, but now it's closing for North America. So basically what this means is, on the actual PSP, you can no longer go to the PlayStation Store and purchase new content. You can still, if you want to buy PSP games and put them on a PSP, you can still do it on the online store on a PC. You could still, I would assume, make purchases on PlayStation 3 and transfer it over there via USB. And of course, obviously, you can still buy PSP content on PS Vita and download it from there. But if you do want to use it through PSP, you're going to have to do it through other means, basically, because purchasing a title directly from the store is not going to work anymore. Sony's also saying, I believe, again, this has been true since the other stores have been closed in other regions, but you can still do in-game purchases as well. So if you are playing a game, you want to do an in-game purchase that way, it'll still work that way. If you want to go to the PlayStation Store on PSP and download a game directly from your download list, you can still do that. But purchasing directly from the store on a PSP is going to be no longer possible in North America on March 31st. And while we're on the topic of things that are ending, PlayStation TV is also having a little bit of an untimely demise. Well, it actually seems pretty timely to me. I'm kind of surprised they let it go on this long, but PlayStation TV shipments have stopped in North America and in Europe, and I believe at the same time it also stopped shipments in Japan. Or actually, what Sony is saying, that shipments for the US and Europe stopped at the end of 2015, and just recently shipments to Japan have also ceased for PlayStation Vita TV, which is what it's called in Japan, and then of course in the West they renamed it to just PlayStation TV. But Sony also commented that they're still shipping the unit in other territories within Asia. So we're not really sure what's going on there. But basically, I mean, again, it's not surprising. I'm more surprised that it took them this long to do this, because that unit has not been moving at all. Like, Sony is selling meager amounts of that system every single week. You can look up these numbers if you want. It's the low thousands, if even nowadays. They just weren't selling. The thing launched at $100, and it's gotten to the point where you can find them on sale for $20. That's a huge cutoff of MSRP. Sony can't get rid of them. All in all, PlayStation TV was pretty much that's one of the few situations where it's like, yeah, it's a straight up failure. Where sometimes you see something like Wii U or Vita, and it's like, it wasn't a huge success, but you can't necessarily say they're a failure. That's kind of one of those situations where it's a little bit in the eyes of the beholder. Wii U and Vita still kind of lived somewhat healthfully on the market, in the sense that they could still thrive in the fact that developers could make money on those platforms. People still bought the systems regularly. Sony and Nintendo still, manufactured them and actually let developers make games for them. But like Vita TV was like just straight up just doomed. Which sucks, but of course that's a lot of Sony's fault. They needed to market it more. They needed to convince people why to actually get that thing. But it's also one of the many situations where I talk about how Sony has terrible, their ecosystem is just so disjointed. You've got so many different platforms, so many different names, so many different operating systems at this point. It's like, why does PlayStation TV have Vita OS? Some consumers don't know that. You know what I'm saying? It's just, there's so many different things that go into it, and it's just so confusing for the consumer. Next up, Sony detailed PS4 Firmware 3.50. Kind of a pretty big update. Comes with a few things. One of the big marquee features that you can do remote play to a PC now, which is definitely a pretty big selling feature for a lot of people. I mean, it's not going to move it's not going to move units to the point where it's going to be noticeable in NPD or anything like that, but it's like, that'll absolutely convince a few people to probably pick up a unit. Also, some other big features we've kind of been asking for a long time: friend notifications, something that was standard on PS3 from the very beginning. We're finally getting that. You can finally appear offline. Jesus Christ, we've been waiting for that forever. There's also live streaming to Daily Motion, if that's kind of your thing. Kind of a, not meager, but like a decent update. Again, it's 3.5. It's not going to be like 4.0 where you're expecting some major hauls to the UI. So it's pretty decent, I'd say. Beta testers are already playing around with the firmware as of March 2nd, so they're kind of already messing around with it and everything, and it shouldn't be that far off from everybody else to download it. Next up, let's talk about a Sony patent that Sony did recently. This is in regards to virtual reality. They patented a new little controller, basically, kind of a glove controller. They did 3 separate little patents about this. One of them is like sort of a thumb input for it. Another one is a glove interface object. And then another one is designated as systems and methods for providing feedback to a user while interacting with content. Again, it's the patent calls for using a head-mounted display as well. Quite obviously, that's virtual reality. That's PlayStation VR. It's the same thing with whenever we talk about patents. It's like sometimes these patents never see the light of day. Sometimes a big multi-billion-dollar corporation just wants to hold on to these patents for technology rights, for research and development. They might not even use it, or they might use it in the long-term future. Maybe this is something we'll see on PlayStation 5. Maybe this is a consumer product that we'll see very soon on PS4. I don't know. This is one of those weird, sort of out there patents where I'm like, we're probably not going to see this anytime soon. Like if this does pop up, it'll probably pop up like upwards to 5 years from now. I wouldn't count on seeing this thing anytime soon. For our final news story, this is kind of a big one. This is kind of what I've been talking about for a while now, and I'm glad that this is finally coming up as sort of a topic. But in sort of an Xbox-related news story, and more so consoles as a whole, Xbox head Phil Spencer was recently discussing the future of Xbox and more so consoles themselves and where he thinks that's sort of going moving forward. Or I guess he is more specifically referring to just Xbox, because that is kind of what he's the front runner of. But when referring to Xbox, he was talking a little bit about how moving forward with the platform, he wants to make it a little. He's doubling down on the compatibility issue of it. Xbox has been very keen with this recently with 360 compatibility. They're adding new 360 games constantly, which is fantastic. The speed of which they're adding more 360 games to the compatibility list is just awesome. But he's talking about forward compatibility as well. So assuming that you'll be able to play your Xbox One games on future Xbox hardware. But he's kind of implying that the Xbox One would in some way, shape, or form possibly be upgradable, or kind of blurring the lines between PC and console. He's kind of implying like, hey, maybe Xbox One could be upgradable at some point, or maybe we can release another Xbox One that is still going to play all the content previously and moving on forward. Kind of going into that detail a little bit. And of course, this is kind of echoing some recent news about how Quantum Break is going on PC as well, and Microsoft's commitment to the PC platform. And of course, you got a whole another group of people that are, angry fanboys going, oh man, why is Quantum Break on PC now? Xbox is dead, or blah, 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 blah. But this is like a big kind of stepping stone, because this is a big name in the industry kind of saying, we at some point are probably going to evolve a traditional console into something that's not so traditional anymore. And I will go on record as saying, I have absolutely said this in past videos. You guys know I've mentioned this a few times about whether it was PS4's future or console's future as a whole. I've always felt that it needs to change in some way, shape, or form, right? That's not really a surprising thing. Everybody kind of knows that needs to happen. Consoles will change at some point, but into what? And my theory was, Consoles need to change into something where they're still very much so consoles. They're simple plug and play boxes. When they start, being more like a PC, they're kind of not really a PC anymore. But in the same sense, it's kind of like a smartphone, more or less. You'd release a new Xbox or a new PlayStation possibly every single year, making them just a little bit stronger, but they can still play games from 4 years ago to 4 years forward, and depending on how new of a PlayStation or Xbox you have, that game can kind of scale to the hardware, I guess. So again, your frame rate and resolution can bump up if you have a newer PlayStation, a newer Xbox, or the game can run on lower settings if your hardware is a little bit lower. There can be an easily viewable compatibility list, I guess. When you go out and buy a new PlayStation or Xbox game, you look on the back and it says requires PlayStation or Xbox from 2018 and above, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is all just theoretical, but that was always my kind of line of thinking. I've said this a few times on record, and so that's kind of like what Phil's getting at. Basically, it's like whether he wants to make Xbox One an upgradable platform, or maybe just releasing newer iterations of Xbox One, but making in the Xbox One essentially a kind of brand name system that constantly evolves and gets stronger and gets added new features and everything. You know what I'm saying? Phil's basically pioneering the fact that, hey, consoles will have to adapt and change into something different, and take some notes from what's going on in the market currently. And he was also talking about the fact that PCs nowadays have come down in price significantly, and it's much more affordable to have a PC in the curve of price to power ratio is really kind of evening out a little bit. I mean, back in the day, consoles were the big go-to thing, because for the price and power, it was just the way to go. Like, consoles made way more sense than PCs nowadays. So now, PC gaming is doing great nowadays. That's not a bad thing, but that's just to kind of represent what needs to change a little bit. What, the market's dictating all these different things. Smartphone gaming, just the fact that smartphones work in such a great way, where they release, they release often, but there's still this vast array of compatibility with all these apps. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can go out and buy any sort of Android phone, and chances are it's gonna, be able to run Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Not the best analogy, but you obviously see what I'm saying. At some point, these things need to change. Phil's kind of getting at that right now. It's a really open-ended discussion. There's so many ways it can go, and even Phil knows that, because he's kind of not really telling us a whole lot of information about what he wants to do in the future, which is understandable. It's just one of those things where we're going to have to really wait and see, but I'm glad that, somebody within the industry has finally stepped forward and kind of talked about what I've been kind of thinking was going to happen. So at this point, there's all these discussions of like, oh, maybe Xbox will finally come up on top. Maybe they've got the right idea moving forward. Oh, what's PlayStation going to do? You know how people overthink about these things. But that's the thing. Microsoft's been pretty forward in finally answering this. And I'm more than certain Sony obviously knows about these things. They're obviously thinking about these things. They're doing R&D right now for the next PlayStation. That's how these things work. Hardware manufacturers start work on the next platform, 1 or 2 years after they release their current hardware. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure. Anyway, those are some of the news stories I want to talk about with you guys this week. The Rhino Gaming topic was timed exclusive games. What's up with those? Why do those things happen? What's up with the business aspect of it? Why not just do a full exclusive? Was kind of the post question, but we get into a whole discussion about timed exclusive games and everything like that. The Sly Cooper Let's Play is done, which is great. That was a fun Let's Play. I will probably not have time to decide the next Let's Play, so what's going to happen is I have a few other videos backed up. I'll probably upload maybe a video game teacher video I've been sitting on for a while. I have like 2 or 3 of those that I've had pre-recorded just to save for a rainy day, because obviously I'm a little bit busy right now. So I might upload that on Monday as just kind of a stopgap. So it is still content, and actually they're really funny. I always like going back and rewatching them, even though they're not even live yet. I love filming those videos. Please check that out if that one gets uploaded Monday. And then the week after we'll do a Let's Play, and we'll decide what the Let's Play will actually be, because I have no idea right now. And obviously, if you haven't noticed, I kind of sound sick. I've kind of been feeling really shitty the past few days, so please disregard that. And again, the next week, this whole setting is probably going to change, because there's about, I don't know, like 7 or 8, 10 boxes behind this camera right now, and you can obviously probably see that it's a little bit of a mess right now. So I got a lot of work to do, and I think you do too. What are you doing right now? Why are you watching this video? Shouldn't you be doing something else? Yeah, I think you should. That concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Rob Beck. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I'll see you guys next Friday.